Imagine you're all alone. It's the middle of the night, and the only thing between you and the crushing cold of a winter on the Great Plains is a cone-shaped shelter made of animal skins and wooden poles. Could you survive when the cold doesn't forgive mistakes? The wind outside isn't just a sound, it's a living thing. It screams and howls, pushing against the buffalo hides of your tipi with a force that makes the whole structure groan. It sounds like a hungry animal trying to get in, and in a way, it is. The cold is a predator, and it's hunting for any crack, any mistake you might make. Inside, your world has shrunk to a small circle of flickering light from a tiny fire in the center. This little fire is your only source of warmth, your only light in a sea of darkness. You can see the shadows of the support poles dancing on the hide walls, making them look like giant, moving skeletons. Every gust of wind makes the shadows jump and twist, and for a moment you feel like you're not alone. The air you breathe is thick with the smell of wood smoke and the faint earthy scent of the cured animal skins that make up your walls. You sit on a pile of furs, pulling a heavy buffalo robe tied around your shoulders, but you can still feel the cold seeping up from the frozen ground beneath you. It's a deep, penetrating cold that seems to find its way into your bones. You look up toward the opening at the top of the teepee. Through the swirling smoke from your fire, you can catch a glimpse of a black sky, but there are no stars. The sky is hidden by a thick blanket of storm clouds. Snow isn't just falling, it's being thrown sideways by the wind. You can hear the hiss of it hitting the hide walls. It's a constant reminder of the world outside, a world that is completely hostile to human life right now. Your only connection to survival is that small pile of glowing embers. You know you can't let it go out. Not for a minute. If that fire dies, the cold will rush in to take its place, and it will win. Staying awake is a battle. Your body craves sleep, but your mind knows that deep sleep could be a death sentence. You have to listen to the fire, understand its needs. Does it need another piece of wood? Is it getting enough air? You are not just a person in a shelter. You are a caretaker of a flame. The loneliness is a heavy weight. There are no city sounds, no distant cars, no humming refrigerators. There is only the roar of the wind, the crackle of the fire, and the loud, steady beat of your own heart. In this emptiness, every small sound is magnified. A shift in the poles, a flutter of the hide door, each one makes you jump. You start to wonder what's out there in the dark. Are there animals moving in the storm? Are you truly alone? This isn't a camping trip. There is no rescue team to call. There is no heated car waiting for you a short walk away. Your survival depends entirely on the knowledge passed down through generations, on your ability to respect the power of nature, and on your own strength to fight off the cold and the fear. As you add another small piece of wood to the fire, watching the flames lick at the dry bark, you understand something very clearly. In this place, at this time, you are small and fragile. The world outside is immense and powerful. And the night is very, very long. The simple act of staying warm until morning has become the single most important task of your entire life. Could modern people, with all our technology, get used to a life without central heating, electricity, or even solid walls? It's a tough question, and the answer lies in understanding the people who lived this way for thousands of years. The people of the Great Plains, tribes like the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Comanche, were masters of a lifestyle that would seem impossible to us today. They didn't live in one place. They were nomads, which is a fancy word for people who move around. But they didn't wander without a reason. Their entire world revolved around one animal, the buffalo. You can think of the buffalo as a walking supermarket. It provided almost everything they needed to live. The meat was their main source of food, packed with the protein and fat they needed to survive the harsh winters. The hide, or skin, was used to make the coverings for their teepees, their clothing, their shoes, and the warm robes they slept under. Even the bones were used. They were shaped into tools like scrapers for cleaning hides or needles for sewing. The horns were turned into cups and spoons. Nothing was wasted. Because the great herds of buffalo were always on the move, the people had to move with them. Their homes, the tipis, were perfectly designed for this kind of life. A whole village could pack up their homes and be ready to travel in about an hour. Imagine trying to do that with a modern house. This life wasn't about being alone, though. A person trying to survive by themselves would not have lasted long. Everything was done as a community. The men would hunt together, often using brilliant strategies to hunt the massive buffalo. The women would work together to prepare the food, tan the hides, and craft the clothing and tools. Everyone had a job, and everyone was important. Children learned by watching their parents and elders. They didn't go to a school building. The whole world was their classroom. They learned how to read the weather in the clouds, how to find edible plants, and how to understand the behavior of animals. This was not knowledge you could find in a book. It was knowledge that was lived every single day. Their connection to the land was incredibly deep. They didn't see themselves as owners of the land, but as a part of it, just like the animals and the rivers. They understood the rhythms of the seasons and respected the power of nature because their lives depended on it. For us, a storm is an inconvenience that might knock out the power for a few hours. For them, a blizzard was a life-or-death event that tested all of their skills and knowledge. So when you picture that person alone in a teepee at night, you have to remember they wouldn't normally be alone. They would be part of a village, surrounded by family and friends. But they would still be relying on skills that most of us have completely lost. We rely on thermostats, grocery stores, and weather apps. They relied on their senses, their community, and a profound understanding of the world around them. Their life wasn't easier or harder, it was just completely different, built on a foundation of knowledge that we can now only try to imagine. Could you handle nights where the cold bites right through your clothes and seems to settle in your bones? This is the reality of a winter on the Great Plains. It's a level of cold that most people today have never ever experienced. We talk about cold weather, but we're usually talking about a quick walk from a warm house to a warm car. This is different. This is a cold that doesn't go away for months. The temperatures would often drop far, far below freezing. We're talking about numbers that sound like they belong in a science lab, not outside your door. At these temperatures, things change. A cup of hot water thrown into the air would instantly freeze and fall to the ground as ice. Your breath doesn't just make a little cloud, it freezes into tiny ice crystals on your scarf or your beard. Exposed skin is not just uncomfortable, it's a serious danger. Frostbite can happen in minutes. Your fingers, toes, nose, and ears would go numb, and you might not even realize the damage that is being done until it's too late. The skin and the tissue underneath can freeze solid, and the damage can be permanent. But the temperature is only part of the story. The real enemy is the wind. There are very few trees on the Great Plains to stop it. The wind blows constantly, and it is absolutely relentless. It's like a physical force that pushes against you and everything around you. A day that is simply cold can become life-threatening when the wind starts to blow. It strips away your body heat with terrifying speed. That feeling we call wind chill was a constant threat. The wind makes the cold feel 10 or 20 degrees colder than the thermometer says. It finds every little gap in your clothing and feels like icy needles on your skin. Then there's the snow. A gentle snowfall might seem pretty, but a plains blizzard is a different beast altogether. A blizzard is a storm with powerful winds, blinding snow, and freezing temperatures all at once. It can create what's called a whiteout, where the snow is so thick in the air that you can't tell the difference between the ground and the sky. Everything is just a swirling wall of white. You could get lost just a few feet from your own teepee. People knew not to travel or even go far from their shelter when a blizzard was coming. They knew the signs, a certain look to the clouds, a change in the wind. Their survival depended on reading these signs correctly. This environment tested every skill you had. Just staying warm was a full-time job. The buffalo robes and hide clothing were excellent protection, but you had to know how to wear them, how to keep them dry. If your clothes got wet from sweat or melting snow, the cold could become deadly very quickly because water pulls heat away from your body much faster than air does. Imagine facing this day after day, week after week. It's a constant battle. The cold is always there, waiting for you to make a mistake. Forgetting to cover your face, not gathering enough firewood, or underestimating a coming storm could be the last mistake you ever make. It required a level of toughness and respect for nature that is hard for us to truly understand. Could you figure out how air moves and how to trap heat if your life depended on it with no instruction manual? That's exactly what the design of the teepee is all about. From the outside, it might look like just a simple cone-shaped tent, but it's actually a brilliant piece of engineering, perfectly designed for life on the Great Plains. Let's break down why it works so well. First, think about its shape. It's a cone for a very important reason. The Great Plains are famous for their incredibly strong winds. A flat-sided structure like a regular tent or a boxy house would get battered by the wind. The wind would push hard against those flat walls, but a cone has no flat sides. The wind hits it and just slips right around it. This makes the teepee very stable, even in a serious storm. It's also slightly tilted, with a longer side at the back, which helps brace it against the prevailing winds. Next is the covering, which was made from 10 to 20 buffalo hides, all sewn together. This wasn't just a simple blanket. Buffalo hide is incredibly tough and durable. It's also very heavy, which helps hold the structure down and stops it from flapping wildly in the wind. When prepared correctly, the hide is also water-resistant, keeping rain and melting snow out. But here is where the design gets really clever. Inside the main covering, there was often an inner liner. This was a second wall of hide or cloth that went around the inside of the teepee, from the ground up to about head height. This liner did two very important things. First, it created a pocket of air between the outer wall and the inner wall. This trapped air acted as insulation, just like the air between two panes of glass in a modern window keeps a house warmer. It stopped the cold from the outside from coming straight through. Second, it helped with air circulation. The liner didn't go all the way to the ground. This allowed cool, fresh air to flow in from under the outside cover, travel up through the gap between the liner and the wall, and then enter the living space. This was the fresh air supply for both the people and the fire. The most brilliant part of the whole design, though, was at the very top, the smoke hole and its two flaps. These weren't just random holes. The two flaps were attached to long poles that reached all the way to the ground. A person inside could use these poles to adjust the flaps, opening or shutting them and changing their angle. This gave them complete control over the air inside the teepee. They could position the flaps to block the wind while still letting the smoke from the central fire escape. This created a chimney effect. The warm air from the fire would rise and go out the smoke hole. As it did, it would pull that fresh, cool air up from the bottom. This constant, gentle flow of air kept the smoke out of the living area and gave the fire the oxygen it needed to burn cleanly. So, the teepee wasn't just a shelter from the wind and snow. It was a complete climate control system, all built from natural materials. It was warm in the winter, and by lifting the sides of the outer cover, it could be kept cool in the summer. It was a home born from thousands of years of observation and intelligence. Could you keep a fire going through a long, freezing night, knowing that if it goes out, you might not wake up? In a teepee during a plains winter, the fire was the heart of your world. It was life. But managing that fire was a delicate skill, what we might call fire discipline. It was much more than just throwing logs on a pile. First, you had to have fuel, And you couldn't just run to the store for a bag of firewood. All the wood had to be gathered long before the deep snows of winter arrived. The women of the tribe would spend a lot of time in the fall gathering every dry stick and branch they could find. They knew that finding dry wood after a blizzard would be almost impossible. Wet wood was useless. It wouldn't burn properly. It would just hiss and smolder, creating a lot of smoke but very little heat. So, having a good supply of dry wood was like having money in the bank. Once you had your wood, you had to use it wisely. You might think that a big, roaring bonfire would be the best way to stay warm, but that would be a terrible mistake. A large fire would burn through your precious supply of wood incredibly fast. You could use up a whole night's worth of fuel in just an hour or two. What would you do then? A huge fire could also be dangerous, throwing off sparks that could set the teepee's hide cover or your fur bedding on fire. The goal was not a big fire, but a small, hot, and efficient one. The fire was typically built in a small pit in the center of the teepee floor. It would be kept very compact. The type of wood used also mattered. Hardwoods like oak or ash burn slowly and create long-lasting hot coals. Softer woods like pine burn fast and hot, but don't last as long. People knew which wood was best for which purpose. But the most important part of fire discipline was constant attention. This was not a set-it-and-forget-it situation. The fire needed to be tended to all night long. This meant someone always had to be at least partially awake. Families would often take turns. One person would sleep for a few hours, then wake up to take their turn watching the fire while another person slept. It was a shared responsibility. The person on watch would listen to the fire. They could tell by the sound and the look of the flames if it needed more fuel. They wouldn't add a big log, but maybe just one or two small dry sticks at a time, just enough to keep a steady bed of hot coals glowing. They would also have to pay attention to the wind outside. A strong gust could change the draft inside the teepee, and they might need to get up and adjust the smoke flaps with the long poles to keep the smoke drawing upwards properly. This constant, careful management of a small flame was the key to survival. It was a symbol of their whole way of life, not about using brute force against nature, but about using knowledge, patience, and discipline to live in harmony with it. That small, glowing heart in the center of the teepee was a testament to human ingenuity and the simple, powerful act of paying attention. You feel the cold seeping up from the ground, a deep chill that seems to go right into your bones. Your first thought is to lie down and get some rest. But inside a teepee, where and how you sleep is not a simple choice. It's a carefully planned system, a map of warmth, safety, and social rules. Could you sleep safely and warm when every detail matters? The fire in the center is the heart of the home, the source of all warmth. But you would be wrong to think you could just curl up right next to it. Get too near, and a stray spark could set your fur bedding on fire. The smoke, even with the vents open, can shift and swirl, and sleeping with your head in a cloud of smoke is a quick way to get sick or worse. So there is a proper distance, a ring of safety around the flames. The best spots in the teepee are not for you. They belong to the elders, the head of the family, or honored guests. These spots are in the back, opposite the door flap. This is the warmest and most protected part of the dwelling, shielded from the cold drafts that sneak in every time the entrance is opened. As a newcomer, your place would be near the door. It's the coldest, draftiest, and most vulnerable spot. Every gust of wind feels like an icy hand on your back. Every time someone enters or leaves, you get a fresh blast of the freezing night air. This isn't a punishment, it's just the practical order of things. Those who are most vital to the family's survival, or those who are most respected, get the best protection. You haven't earned that spot yet. And what would you be sleeping on? Forget a soft mattress. You'd be on a raised platform, maybe made of woven willow branches, designed to lift you just a few inches off the freezing earth. This small gap of air makes a huge difference, preventing the ground from stealing all your body heat. On top of this platform, you would have layers of animal hides. The bottom layer might be a thick, tough buffalo hide with the hair still on it. It's a great insulator and a barrier against the cold. On top of that, you might have softer, warmer furs, like deerskin or rabbit. These are your blankets. They are heavy, and they smell of wood smoke, earth, and the animal they came from. It's not an unpleasant smell, but it is a constant reminder that your comfort comes directly from nature. You would be told to sleep with your feet pointing toward the fire. Everyone sleeps this way, in a circle, like spokes on a wheel. It's the most efficient way to share the warmth. The fire keeps your feet from freezing, and the heat travels up your body under the furs. You pull your buffalo robe tight around you, but the cold is persistent. The hard platform beneath you feels alien. You are used to a bed that gives way to your body, but this is firm and unyielding. Every little sound from outside makes you jump. The furs are warm, but they are also scratchy in places. This isn't the restful, deep sleep you know. This is a survivor's sleep, a light and watchful state, where one part of your mind is always awake, listening for danger and feeling for the life-giving warmth of the fire. You realize that sleep here isn't just about closing your eyes. It's about understanding your place, respecting the fire, and accepting a level of discomfort that your modern life has completely erased. Without this knowledge, you'd either freeze by the door or foolishly risk getting burned by the fire. The night presses in on you, dark and heavy. The only light is the soft, dancing glow of the fire in the center of the teepee. Outside, the wind howls, a lonely and menacing sound that seems to come from all directions at once. It's not just wind, it's a voice from the wild, reminding you how small and fragile you are. Could you remain calm when fear gnaws at your body? Your modern mind is not prepared for this. You're used to solid walls, locked doors, and the quiet hum of electricity. Here, the only thing between you and the vast frozen wilderness is a thin layer of animal hide. The teepee canvas groans and flaps with every gust. It sounds like something is trying to get in, something big and unseen. Every snap of a twig outside is a potential threat. Is it a wolf? A bear? Or just the wind playing tricks on you? Your heart pounds in your chest. The darkness itself feels different. It's a deep, absolute blackness that your eyes can't pierce. The shadows thrown by the fire twist and move, creating shapes that look like crouching figures in the corners of your vision. You try to tell yourself it's just your imagination, but your body doesn't listen. The primal part of your brain, the part that our ancestors relied on for survival, is screaming that you are in danger. You are not alone in the teepee. There are other people sleeping around the fire. But a deep sense of isolation creeps over you. This isn't the comforting presence of family in a safe home. This is a small group of humans huddled together against a powerful and indifferent nature. Their survival and yours depends on knowledge and skills you simply don't have. They can hear the wind and know what it means. They can tell the difference between the sound of a falling branch and the step of an animal. To you, it's all just noise, a terrifying symphony of the unknown. Your mind starts to race. What if the fire goes out? You would freeze before morning. What if someone gets sick? There are no doctors, no medicine you would recognize. You are completely dependent on the people around you and the raw resources of the land. This feeling of helplessness is a powerful poison. It feeds your fear and makes the cold feel even colder. The people who lived this way for generations developed a powerful mental strength. They learned to live with the darkness and the sounds of the night. They found comfort in the circle of family and the warmth of the fire. They understood that fear was a tool, something to keep you alert, but not something to control you. They had stories, songs, and ceremonies that gave them a sense of purpose and connection to the world around them, turning the scary wilderness into a home. You, on the other hand, are a product of a world that tries to eliminate all risk and discomfort. Your mind is not trained to handle this level of raw, unfiltered reality. The constant, low-level anxiety you might feel in your daily life would explode into full-blown panic here. The psychological pressure of the darkness, the sounds, and the isolation would be overwhelming. You would not just be fighting the cold, you would be fighting your own mind. And that is a battle you would likely lose long before the sun comes up. The fire is the center of your world right now. It is your only source of heat, your only light in the crushing darkness, and your only way to cook food. You look at the pile of wood next to you and think it's simple. Just keep adding logs to the flames. But you would be dangerously wrong. Keeping a fire alive and effective through a long, freezing night is a science and an art, a set of skills passed down through generations. Could you learn these skills fast enough to stay alive? Your first mistake would be the wood itself. You see a pile of branches and think all wood is the same. The people of the plains knew better. They knew that you needed different kinds of wood for different jobs. You need dry, dead hardwood, like oak or ash, because it burns slowly and creates a bed of hot, long-lasting coals. These coals are the secret to keeping the teepee warm all night. You don't want a big, roaring fire that eats up all your fuel in an hour. You want a steady, controlled burn. Softwoods, like pine, are good for starting a fire quickly because they catch flame easily, but they burn up fast and create a lot of smoke and sparks. Using the wrong wood means you'll either run out of fuel before morning or create a fire that is inefficient and dangerous. Let's say you have the right wood. Your next challenge is how to arrange it. You can't just toss it on. You have to place the logs carefully, allowing for air to flow underneath. You need to understand how to feed the fire without smothering it. The goal is to maintain that heart of glowing embers. You gently push the embers together, then lay a new piece of wood on top, letting it catch slowly. It's a constant, delicate process. Someone has to be on fire duty, waking up every hour or two through the night to check it, adjust the logs, and make sure it doesn't die. If you fall into a deep sleep, the fire will go out, and the cold that floods the teepee will be life-threatening. Then there is the smoke. A teepee is designed with an opening at the top covered by two large flaps, often called smoke flaps. These flaps are not just simple covers, they are a sophisticated ventilation system controlled by long poles from the outside. You must adjust these flaps constantly based on the direction of the wind. If the wind changes and you don't adjust the flaps, the smoke won't go up and out. Instead, it will be pushed back down into the teepee, filling the small space with a thick, choking haze. Your eyes would burn. You would cough until your lungs ached, and you could easily be overcome by the smoke. Reading the wind and knowing exactly how to position the flaps is a crucial skill. For the people who lived here, it was as natural as breathing. For you, it would be a frustrating and dangerous puzzle. You would likely make one of two fatal mistakes. Either you would burn through your precious wood supply by midnight, leaving you to freeze for the rest of the night, or you would manage the fire so poorly that you fill the teepee with smoke, making it impossible to breathe. The simple act of staying warm becomes a complex task requiring knowledge, patience, and constant attention. Without these skills, the fire that is meant to save you could easily become the thing that seals your fate. You are sitting by the fire, but a persistent chill still works its way into your body. You look down at your modern clothes, your fleece jacket, your insulated pants, and you think you're prepared for the cold. But this is a different kind of cold, a wet, biting cold that finds every gap in your armor. To survive here, you would need to trade your modern gear for the traditional clothing of the people who called this land home. Could you dress properly if you only have traditional clothing? Let's start with the most important piece of gear, the buffalo robe. Imagine a heavy blanket made from the entire hide of a buffalo, with the thick, shaggy hair left on. This isn't a fashion statement, it's a personal, portable shelter. It's incredibly warm and an amazing shield against the wind. When you wrap it around yourself, you are cocooned in a layer of insulation perfected by nature over thousands of years. But it's also heavy. Moving around with it draped over you takes getting used to. You feel its weight on your shoulders, a constant reassuring pressure that separates you from the freezing air. Underneath the robe, you wouldn't be wearing cotton or synthetics. Your base layer would likely be a shirt or tunic made of soft tanned deerskin. Deerskin is surprisingly comfortable against the skin. It breathes so you don't get too sweaty, but it also provides a good layer of warmth. For your legs, you would have leggings, also made of deerskin, tied to a belt at your waist. This design allows for freedom of movement, which is essential for walking, riding, or working. Now think about your feet. You are probably wearing thick, waterproof boots. Here, you would be given a pair of moccasins. Moccasins are soft-soled shoes made from leather, usually deerskin or moose hide. In the winter, they would be made from a thicker hide and lined with soft fur like rabbit fur for extra warmth. They are incredibly comfortable, like wearing a thick pair of socks, and they allow you to feel the ground beneath your feet. But they have a major disadvantage for a modern person. They are not waterproof. Walking through deep snow means your feet will get wet. The people here knew how to manage this. They would have extra fur liners to swap out, and they knew how to dry their moccasins carefully by the fire without making the leather stiff and cracked. You would probably just end up with cold, wet feet, which is one of the fastest ways to lose body heat and get frostbite. The entire system of clothing is based on layers of natural materials: a deerskin tunic, leggings, a heavy buffalo robe, and fur-lined moccasins. It was a highly effective system, but it required knowledge to use correctly. You had to know how to wear the robe to keep drafts out, how to keep your deerskin from getting soaked, and how to care for your moccasins. Without this knowledge, the clothes would not protect you as they should. You would struggle with the weight of the robe and the vulnerability of the moccasins. Your modern mindset, which relies on waterproof, lightweight technology, would be a handicap. You'd find that staying warm isn't just about what you wear, but how you wear it and how you live in it. The cold doesn't just make you uncomfortable, it actively drains the energy from your body. To survive the night, you need to constantly refuel your internal furnace. But there are no refrigerators, no pantries stocked with canned goods, and definitely no quick microwave meals. The food here is simple, effective, and entirely different from anything you are used to. Could you keep your energy without modern snacks? Your body is burning through calories at an incredible rate just to stay warm. You need food that is dense with energy, especially fat and protein. The #1 survival food on the plains was something called pemmican. Imagine taking lean meat, usually from a buffalo, and drying it until it's hard. Then you pound it into a powder, almost like a coarse flour. You mix this powdered meat with hot, melted fat, also from the buffalo. Sometimes dried berries like choke cherries or saskatoons were mashed in for flavor and vitamins. This mixture was then packed tightly into leather bags, where it would cool and harden. The result is a super concentrated block of energy. A small piece of pemmican could keep a hunter going for hours. It doesn't spoil easily and is easy to carry. But for your modern palate, it would be a shock. The taste is intensely gamey and fatty. The texture is dense and waxy. It's not something you eat for pleasure. It's something you eat for fuel. Your body, accustomed to sugar and processed carbohydrates for quick energy, would struggle to adapt. You might also be given a small bowl of porridge made from ground corn, cooked over the fire. It's warm and filling, but plain. There is no sugar, no milk, no butter. It is simply corn and water. You might also chew on strips of dried meat, what we might call jerky. But this isn't the soft, seasoned jerky you buy at a store. This is tough, leathery meat that has been smoked and dried by the sun. You have to chew it for a long time to break it down, working your jaw until it's sore. Every calorie you consume requires effort. The food you are offered represents a successful hunt or a good harvest from months ago. Nothing is wasted. Every piece of meat, every bit of fat, every dried berry is precious. The people here had a deep understanding of what their bodies needed to survive in this harsh environment. They didn't think about balanced meals in the way we do. They thought about energy, warmth, and strength. For you, the psychological challenge would be as great as the physical one. You would crave the comfort of familiar foods. A simple slice of bread or a sweet piece of fruit would seem like an impossible luxury. You would have to force yourself to eat the pemmican, to chew the tough dried meat, and to find satisfaction in a simple bowl of corn mush. Without a steady supply of high-energy food, your body would quickly start to fail. You would become weak, your thinking would get cloudy, and you would be even more vulnerable to the cold. Staying warm isn't just about the fire and the furs. It's about what you put inside your body. And without the right fuel, your internal engine would soon run out. Could you stay silent and cautious all night? Imagine for a moment that you are lying in the dark, wrapped in furs. The only light comes from the small fire in the center of the teepee. Around you, your family is asleep. The space is tight. You can hear the soft breathing of each person, the gentle crackle of the burning wood, and the sound of the wind outside. Now you feel a chill and realize you need to shift your position to get warmer. Or maybe you need to add a small piece of wood to the fire before it dies down. This is where the real challenge begins. Every single movement matters. It's not like getting up in your modern home to get a glass of water. Here, a clumsy move could mean disaster. First, you have to move without making a sound. The floor is not a smooth, even surface. It's the earth covered with mats and furs. There are tools, baskets, and sleeping bodies everywhere. If you roll over too quickly, you could bump into your sleeping child or an elder. A sudden noise could wake everyone, disrupting the precious rest they need to face the next day. But waking people is the least of your worries. The biggest danger is the fire. This small flame is your lifeline. It's the only thing standing between your family and the freezing cold that could easily take a life. If you move carelessly and kick a log, you could send a shower of sparks flying. Those sparks could land on a dry fur blanket. In seconds, a small spark could turn into a fire that could burn a hole in the teepee wall, letting in the biting wind and snow. A worse scenario is that it could set the bedding on fire, creating panic and chaos in a dark, enclosed space. Or you could do the opposite. You might accidentally smother the fire. A wrong move, a piece of fur falling over the embers, or knocking dirt onto it could put out the flames. If the fire goes out, the cold will creep in with alarming speed. Trying to restart a fire in the pitch-black darkness with frozen fingers is an incredibly difficult task. So, you learn to move with a slowness and a purpose you've never known before. You move like a hunter stalking its prey. Every muscle is controlled. You listen to the rhythm of the sleeping family. You know exactly where everything is without even looking. You don't just roll over. You slowly and carefully lift yourself, find a new spot, and settle back down with the grace of a cat. Adding wood to the fire is an art. You don't just toss a log on. You choose the right piece, a dry one that won't smoke too much. You place it on the embers so gently that it makes almost no sound. You do it in a way that allows air to flow so the flame can grow steadily, not flare up suddenly. This is a skill learned over a lifetime, passed down from parents to children. It's a dance of survival performed every single night. For you, a visitor from another time, it would be a night of constant tension. Every itch, every need to cough, every urge to move would be a test. You'd have to fight your body's natural impulses. You would quickly learn that silence and stillness are not just about being polite. They are essential tools for making it to the morning. Could you rely on tradition when survival feels impossible? The cold of the night is more than just a feeling on your skin. It can creep into your mind, bringing with it feelings of fear and hopelessness. When the wind howls outside and sounds like a hungry animal, it's easy to feel small and alone. Physical warmth from a fire is crucial, but it's often not enough to get you through the darkest hours. This is where the warmth of stories and traditions becomes just as important as the fire itself. As you lie there in the dim light of the teepee, an elder might begin to speak. Their voice is low and steady, a comforting sound against the noise of the wind. They aren't just talking to pass the time. They are weaving a blanket of comfort and strength with their words. They tell the old stories, the ones their grandparents told them. These are stories of clever coyotes, brave ancestors, and the creation of the world. To an outsider, it might sound like simple folklore. But for the people here, it's a powerful medicine for the spirit. The stories remind you that you are part of something much larger than this one cold night. They connect you to generations of people who have sat by fires just like this one, in teepees just like this one, and survived nights that were just as cold. The stories often contain important lessons. A story about a foolish person who let their fire go out is a stark reminder of your duties. A tale about a hero who outsmarted a great beast gives you courage. They teach you how to be resilient, how to be patient, and how to look for hope even when things seem bleak. The words fill the small space, pushing back the darkness and the fear. Besides stories, there are prayers and quiet rituals. Before settling down for the night, a prayer might be offered, giving thanks for the shelter of the teepee and the warmth of the fire. It might be a request for protection through the night, for the safety of the children, and for the strength to face the coming day. These are not grand, loud ceremonies. They are quiet moments of connection to the spiritual world. It's a way of acknowledging that you are not in complete control and that you are relying on a greater power to help you. This act of faith can bring a deep sense of peace. It helps you let go of the anxiety that the cold creates. It gives you a sense of purpose and helps you believe that you will see the sunrise. For you, trying to survive this night, these traditions would be a lifeline. Without them, you would be left alone with your thoughts, listening to the wind and worrying about the dwindling pile of firewood. But with these stories and prayers, you are wrapped in a community, connected to the past, and given a reason to believe in the future. The warmth you feel is not just from the fire. It's from the shared human spirit, kept alive through words and faith, night after night. Could you stay calm when little ones cry in freezing cold? In the quiet, fragile world of the teepee at night, any sudden noise is a cause for alarm. But no sound is more urgent or heart-stopping than the cry of a baby. It cuts through the silence and immediately puts everyone on alert. A baby's cry is not just a disruption. It's a signal that something is wrong, and in this environment, anything wrong can become dangerous very quickly. For a mother, and indeed for the entire family, a crying infant is the #1 priority. You can't just let a baby cry it out here. First, there's the immediate danger of the cold. A small body loses heat much faster than an adult's. A baby's cry might mean a piece of their fur wrapping has come loose, exposing their delicate skin to the frigid air. The mother's first instinct is to pull the baby closer, sharing her own body heat. Babies were often kept in cradle boards, which were like portable beds, lined with the softest moss for insulation and wrapped in layers of prepared animal skins. The mother would keep this cradle board right next to her body, creating a warm, safe cocoon. Then there's the issue of energy. Crying burns a lot of calories, and in a world where every bit of energy is precious, a baby can't afford to waste it. A crying baby is a hungry baby. The mother must feed the child, a process done with quiet efficiency in the dark. It's a moment of deep connection, a silent promise that she is there to provide nourishment and safety. But the danger of a crying baby extends beyond the teepee itself. The sound travels far on the cold, still air. To a predator like a wolf or a coyote roaming nearby, a baby's cry sounds like an invitation. It signals the presence of a vulnerable family. So, soothing the baby quickly and quietly is a matter of safety for everyone. It's a community effort. An older sibling might gently rock the cradleboard, or a grandmother might hum a soft, low song that has soothed generations of children. Everyone understands the stakes. Older children in the teepee learn this lesson from a very young age. They learn that the night is a time for quiet. They learn to control their own discomfort, to not complain about being cold or hungry, because they see the care and attention given to the most vulnerable among them. They learn resilience by watching their parents. They see the calm, focused way their mother tends to the baby, and they learn that panic has no place here. The night is a classroom for survival, and the lessons are about community, responsibility, and self-control. For you, a modern person, the sound of a baby crying in such a harsh environment would be deeply stressful. Your instinct might be to turn on a light, to walk around, to do many things that are impossible here. You would have to learn a new kind of calm, a new kind of patience. You'd witness how a family works together as a single unit, their movements practiced and their purpose clear, to protect the next generation and ensure that the family circle remains unbroken, ready to greet the morning sun together. Could you survive if you ignored half the work around you? When we think of survival in a harsh, wild environment, our minds often jump to images of hunting. We picture a man with a bow, the weapon, or a spear, bravely tracking a large animal to feed his family. And while that work was absolutely essential, it was only part of the story. The truth is, the hunt could fail. But the work that happened inside the teepee, the work primarily done by women, never stopped. It was this constant, quiet, and skillful labor that formed the true backbone of survival. To ignore this work would be to ignore the very foundation of life. At the center of this world was the fire. The woman of the teepee was its keeper. This wasn't a simple task of throwing on logs. It was a science. She knew exactly which wood burned hottest and which burned longest. She understood how the wind coming through the smoke flaps at the top of the teepee would affect the flames. She kept a pile of dry tinder ready, protected from any dampness. Throughout the night, she would wake instinctively, almost without thinking, to add a single, well-chosen piece of wood to keep the embers glowing. Letting the fire go out was not an option. It meant a desperate, freezing struggle to relight it in the dark. Her work extended to the very skins that kept everyone warm. She was in charge of the bedding, the thick furs of buffalo or bear. She made sure they were dry and properly arranged to give the most warmth to the children and elders. If a draft was felt, she would be the one to get up and adjust the teepee liner, an inner wall of hide, to block the cold air. This was a constant battle against the encroaching frost. Food was another of her responsibilities. The meat from a successful hunt was precious, and none of it could be wasted. During the night, she might be slowly preparing food for the next day. This could mean soaking dried meat in a pot of water near the fire, so it would be soft enough to cook in the morning. She managed the family's supply of dried berries, roots, and corn, making sure it was protected from moisture and mice. Her work was in the details. She would notice a small tear in a child's moccasin and would make a mental note to mend it at first light. A hole in a shoe might seem like a small problem, but on a long walk in the snow, it could lead to frostbite and serious injury. She was the one who kept the family's clothing in good repair, using sinew for thread and a sharp piece of bone for a needle. This work was not loud or dramatic. It was a series of small, vital tasks, repeated day after day and night after night. It was a rhythm of care and preparation. While the hunter provided the raw materials for survival, the woman turned those materials into life. She turned a dead animal into warm clothes and nourishing food. She turned a pile of wood into a life-sustaining fire. Without her constant watchful eye and skillful hands, the teepee would just be a cold tent, and the family inside would not last long. Could you stay awake and alert when predators roam nearby? The teepee is a circle of warmth and light in a world of deep, silent darkness. Outside, under the cold stars, the world belongs to the night animals, and you are very much aware that you are in their home, not the other way around. The hide walls of the teepee can stop the wind, but they offer little real protection from a determined predator. Survival through the night isn't just about fighting the cold from within. It's about being vigilant against the dangers that lurk just outside. As the night deepens, your sense of hearing becomes your most important tool. You learn to listen to the language of the darkness. Every sound has a meaning. You learn to tell the difference between the whistle of the wind as it wraps around the teepee poles and the low, hungry howl of a wolf pack in the distance. A single howl might not be a worry, but a chorus of them, getting closer, puts everyone on high alert. You learn that the snap of a twig could be from the cold making a branch brittle, or it could be the footstep of a mountain lion or a bear. The silence itself can be telling. If the usual night sounds, the chirping of insects or the call of an owl, suddenly stop, it means something large is moving nearby, and the smaller creatures have gone quiet in fear. This is a sign you cannot ignore. Someone in the family always has the duty of being on watch. This doesn't mean they sit bolt upright all night. It's a state of half sleep, a light rest where one ear is always open, listening to the world outside. The family might take turns, or it might be an elder who sleeps lightly anyway. They are the guardians of the family's sleep. The camp dogs are a crucial part of this security system. These dogs are not pampered pets. They are working members of the family. They have keen senses of hearing and smell. Long before you hear a wolf, a dog will sense its presence. A low growl from a dog is an early warning. A sudden burst of barking is an alarm that brings the whole camp to attention instantly. If a threat is detected, the response is calm and calculated. Panic is the enemy. The person on watch might quietly add more wood to the fire. A brighter flame makes the teepee more visible and can be enough to scare away a curious animal. A weapon, like a spear or a bow, the weapon, is always kept within easy reach, right next to where you sleep. You hope you never have to use it, but you are always prepared. You know that you are a guest in this wild land. You are not its master. This understanding creates a deep sense of respect for the animals, even the ones that pose a threat. The night is a constant reminder that the world is much bigger and wilder than your small, warm shelter. Staying alive requires more than just furs and a fire. It requires a sharp mind, keen senses, and the humility to know your place in the natural order of things. You are not there to conquer the night, but to coexist with it, and hopefully to see the safety of the dawn. You feel the fire on your face, a welcome warmth in the biting cold. But then you shift, just a little, and a wave of cold hits your back. The fire is a friend, but it's a focused friend. It only warms what it can see. So, how do you stay warm when the fire can't reach every part of you? Could you use your body as part of the heating system? This is where the real knowledge of survival begins, and it's far more personal than just tending to a flame. The first tool you have is your own breath. Think about it. On a cold day, you can see your breath turn to vapor. That's heat and moisture escaping your body. Instead of letting it go, you can capture it. You can cup your hands over your mouth and nose and breathe slowly. The air you inhale is warmed slightly by your hands, and the air you exhale warms your fingers. You create a tiny pocket of warmth, a personal climate you control. This small act, repeated over and over, can keep your fingers from going numb and your face from freezing. It's not about generating a lot of heat, but about saving the heat you already have. It's a simple, brilliant method that requires nothing but you. Then there's the power of being close to others. In our modern world, We value personal space. But in a survival situation, personal space is a waste of warmth. Huddling together is not just for comfort. It is a calculated strategy. Every person is like a small furnace, constantly giving off heat. When you sit alone, that heat radiates out into the vast, cold air and is lost. But when you press close to another person, your heat warms them, and their heat warms you. Two people together don't just produce double the heat. They create a shared zone of warmth that is much easier to maintain. The heat from one body is captured by the other, instead of escaping. If a family is huddled together under a pile of furs, they create a large, warm bubble. The people in the middle are the most protected, while those on the outside act as a shield. They would rotate, giving everyone a chance to be in the warmest spot. It's a system built on cooperation, a living, breathing heating unit where every person plays a part. And finally, you have the furs themselves. But wearing them is a science. You don't just throw on a single heavy robe, you layer. This is the most important principle of staying warm. The goal isn't to wear the thickest fur, it's to trap as much air as possible. Air is a fantastic insulator. When it's trapped in small pockets, it can't move around and carry your body heat away. So, you would start with a soft layer of fur worn against the skin, perhaps rabbit or something similar. This layer wicks away any sweat. Then you add another thicker layer on top, like deer or elk hide. The space between these two layers traps a blanket of air. If it's truly cold, you might add a third, heavy outer layer, like a buffalo robe, which acts as a windbreaker. This system of layers keeps you warm, but also allows you to adjust. If you start to get too warm while working, you can remove a layer to avoid sweating, because sweat is the enemy. Once your inner layers get damp, water will pull heat from your body 25 times faster than air. Staying dry is even more important than staying warm. This is a system where your own body, your breath, your family, and your clothing all work together. It's a far more complex and intelligent approach than simply sitting next to a fire. The sound begins as a low whistle, a distant complaint from the landscape. But soon it grows into a deep moan, and then a full-throated howl. This is the voice of a blizzard. It's not just wind, it's an assault. Fine, sharp particles of snow are driven sideways with incredible force, and they find their way into everything. The teepee, which felt so secure just an hour ago, now seems fragile. The hide walls ripple and snap with each powerful gust. You can hear the wooden poles creaking under the strain. The wind doesn't just go around the teepee, it feels like it's trying to push its way straight through the walls. Could you maintain calm when snow screams around you? The real test of survival isn't just enduring the cold, it's enduring the storm itself, a force that seems determined to tear your world apart. Inside, the atmosphere has changed completely. The smoke from your small, precious fire no longer rises in a neat column to the opening at the top. The swirling winds outside disrupt the flow. Puffs of smoke are pushed back down into the living space, making your eyes water and your throat raw. You have to constantly adjust the two large flaps at the top of the teepee, trying to find an angle that lets the smoke out but doesn't let the blizzard in. It's a delicate balancing act, and a single mistake can fill the space with blinding, choking smoke. And then there's the snow. It's not the gentle, fluffy snow of a calm winter day. This is a dry, granular snow, like sand. It forces its way through the tiniest openings, the gap where the door flap is tied, the seams where the hides are stitched together, the small space around the base. At first, it's just a fine powder dusting the edges of the floor, but as the hours pass, it accumulates. A small drift begins to form against one wall, then another. It's a constant reminder that the outside world is trying to invade your small pocket of warmth. You have to be vigilant, constantly brushing it away, ensuring it doesn't get near your sleeping furs or your firewood. If the snow melts and makes your bedding damp, you're in serious trouble. The storm isn't just outside, it's actively trying to get in. You feel a profound sense of being under siege. There is nowhere to go, no escape. The world outside has disappeared into a churning vortex of white. Your entire existence shrinks to this small, conical space, a fragile bubble of relative safety in a sea of chaos. The psychological toll is immense. The relentless noise of the wind is not something you can ignore. It's a physical presence that grinds on your nerves. Every powerful gust that makes the teepee shudder sends a jolt of adrenaline through you. You find yourself listening intently, trying to judge the strength of the storm, wondering if the structure will hold. Sleep is nearly impossible. You might doze off for a few minutes, but a particularly violent blast of wind will snap you awake. You're in a state of constant, low-level alert. You have to trust the design of the teepee, a design perfected over generations. You have to trust that the poles are set deep enough, that the hide is strong enough. But for a modern person, unused to such raw power, that trust is hard to find. We are used to solid walls and double-paned windows that keep the weather at a comfortable distance. Here, there is no distance. The storm is right there, just a thin layer of hide away from your skin. To survive this, you need more than just warmth. You need a deep well of inner calm. You have to learn to listen to the storm without letting it control your fear. You have to accept its power, hunker down, and wait, knowing that your survival depends entirely on the strength of your shelter and the steadiness of your own mind. In the desperate cold of a winter night, a mistake is not just a lesson, it can be a final act. Everything is against you, from the freezing air to the dwindling supply of firewood. In this environment, even small errors in judgment have huge consequences. Could you avoid simple errors when everything is against you? Let's start with the most common mistake a novice makes: mismanaging the fire. You're cold, so your first instinct is to build a big, roaring fire. It feels good for a moment, a huge blaze of light and heat that pushes back the darkness. But this is a trap. A large fire consumes wood at an alarming rate. That pile of firewood you spent all afternoon gathering might be gone in just a couple of hours. Then, what do you do in the middle of a freezing night? A large fire also produces a tremendous amount of smoke. In a tipi, this can quickly become a problem, choking you and forcing you to open the smoke flaps wider, which in turn lets in more cold air. The wise approach is to maintain a small, hot fire. A bed of glowing coals with just a few pieces of wood on top produces consistent heat with minimal smoke and uses far less fuel. It's about efficiency, not spectacle. But it requires constant attention, feeding it a piece of wood every so often. It's easy to get distracted or fall asleep and let it die. Restarting a fire from scratch with numb fingers in the dark is a nightmare you don't want to experience. The next fatal error involves your most important piece of gear, your furs and bedding. The absolute rule of a cold environment is to stay dry. But this is harder than it sounds. You bring in a log with some snow on it. You place it near the fire and the snow melts, creating a puddle that seeps into the ground and your bedding. Or, more commonly, you make the mistake of overheating. You huddle too close to the fire, wrapped in all your furs. Your body starts to sweat, just a little. You might not even notice it, but that moisture gets trapped in the inner layers of your clothing. When you move away from the fire, or when the fire dies down, that dampness turns icy cold. It begins to suck the heat right out of your body. Suddenly, you feel a chill that you can't shake, a deep cold that comes from within. You've compromised your insulation, and getting it dry again is extremely difficult in a cold, smoky teepee. The people who lived this way understood this danger. They were experts at managing their body temperature, removing a layer before they started to sweat, and ensuring that no snow ever touched their sleeping area. Finally, there's the simple mistake of where you place your body. You might think the best spot is right next to the fire. It's the warmest place after all. But it's also the most dangerous. A stray spark could land on your fur bedding and smolder for hours before igniting. You also risk getting too hot on one side while the other side remains cold, leading to that dangerous cycle of sweating. So maybe you should be near the wall? That's a bad idea too. The cold from the outside radiates inward from the teepee's hide wall. Even if the air inside is warm, sleeping too close to the skin of the shelter means you'll be losing body heat to the frozen world just inches away. The best place is in the middle ground, a sweet spot that gets radiant heat from the fire, but is far enough away to be safe and not so close to the wall that you lose warmth. Finding and keeping this spot requires constant awareness. These mistakes, a fire too large, a bit of dampness, sleeping in the wrong spot, seem small on their own. But they add up. One mistake leads to another, creating a chain reaction that can leave you dangerously cold and exhausted. Survival isn't about one big heroic act. It's about doing 100 small things correctly, over and over again. Imagine you are taken from your warm, comfortable home and placed in a teepee on a frozen prairie. You have a pile of wood, some furs, and a flint and steel. That's it. No thermostat on the wall, no electric lights, no smartphone with a weather forecast. Could you survive without electricity and central heating? The truth is, for most modern people, the answer is probably no. And it's not because we are physically weaker. It's because we have lost the skills, the patience, and the mindset that are essential for this kind of life. We are products of a world of convenience, a world that has insulated us from the raw realities of nature. The first and most obvious challenge is the sheer skill gap. A person who grew up in this environment knew things we can't even begin to imagine. They could look at a piece of wood and know if it would burn hot and fast or slow and steady. They could read the wind by the way the smoke curled from the top of the teepee. They knew how to stitch a hide so the seam was waterproof and how to bank a fire so the coals would last until morning. These are not simple bits of trivia. They are complex skills learned over a lifetime of observation and practice. We, on the other hand, might struggle for an hour just to start a fire, assuming we could even find dry kindling. Then there is the issue of patience. Our world operates on instant gratification. If we're cold, we turn up the heat, and the room gets warmer in minutes. If we're hungry, we open the refrigerator or put something in the microwave. Survival operates on a completely different timeline. The process of making a teepee warm for the night doesn't start in the evening. It starts in the morning. It involves gathering the right kind of wood, preparing food, and checking the condition of the shelter. Building up a good bed of coals in a fire takes time. Everything is a slow, deliberate process. A modern person would likely become frustrated very quickly. We would want immediate results. We would make a big, hot fire for instant warmth, only to burn through our wood supply by midnight. We lack the methodical, patient mindset required to plan for the long, cold hours ahead. Our impatience would be our undoing. But perhaps the biggest difference is our reliance on technology and our profound disconnection from the natural world. We trust our gadgets more than our senses. We look at a weather app instead of looking at the clouds. We use a GPS instead of learning to navigate by the stars. In the teepee, all of our modern tools are useless. A smartphone is just a cold piece of glass and metal. We would be forced to rely on our own awareness, something most of us have never truly developed. We have also become accustomed to a level of comfort that is historically unprecedented. The idea of being constantly a little bit cold, of smelling like wood smoke all the time, of sleeping on the hard ground. These are not just discomforts to us, they feel like emergencies. We would perceive the normal state of existence in a teepee as a crisis. The people who thrived in these conditions didn't see it that way. For them, it was just life. They accepted the cold, the dark, and the constant effort as part of the natural rhythm of the world. We, in our climate-controlled boxes, have forgotten that rhythm entirely. We haven't just lost the skills, we've lost the fundamental understanding of what it means to live as a part of the environment, not just in it. The fire casts long, dancing shadows on the hide walls of the teepee. Outside, the world is silent and frozen. Inside, you're alone with your thoughts. The physical challenges of staying warm are immense, but there is another battle being fought, one that takes place entirely inside your own mind. It's a struggle against fear, loneliness, and the crushing weight of constant awareness. Could you handle a night where panic is a real and present danger? As darkness falls, your senses become heightened. Every sound is amplified. The gentle crackle and pop of the fire is comforting. But what about the other sounds? The sigh of the wind as it brushes against the teepee. The distant snap of a twig in the frozen forest. Was it just the cold, or was it an animal? Your modern brain, accustomed to the predictable sounds of a city or a suburb, struggles to categorize these new noises. It tends to fill in the blanks with the worst possibilities. The fear that settles in is a cold, creeping thing, entirely different from the physical cold in the air. It's a primal fear of the dark, of the unknown, of being vulnerable. This fear is magnified by a profound sense of isolation. Even if you have survived in the wilderness before, doing it alone in this fragile shelter is a different experience. You are a single, tiny point of warmth and life in a vast, indifferent landscape of cold. The sheer scale of the emptiness around you can be overwhelming. There is no one to talk to, no one to share the burden of watching the fire or listening to the sounds of the night. The loneliness is a heavy blanket. In our connected world, we are rarely ever truly alone. We have phones, screens, and constant distractions. Here, there is nothing to distract you from the reality of your situation. You are forced to confront your own thoughts, your own anxieties, and your own mortality. This intense introspection, combined with the external pressures of survival, can be mentally exhausting. The silence can become as loud as the howling wind of a blizzard. Survival in this context is not a passive state. You cannot simply curl up and sleep soundly through the night. You must remain in a state of constant, low-level awareness. Part of your mind is always awake, always listening. Is the fire dying down? You need to add another piece of wood. Did the wind shift direction? You might need to adjust the smoke flaps. Is that scratching sound at the base of the teepee just snow, or is it a curious animal? This state of vigilance means you never truly rest. The deep, restorative sleep we take for granted is a luxury you cannot afford. You might drift in and out of a light doze, but you are never fully off. This constant mental effort drains your energy just as surely as the cold drains your warmth. Over hours and then days, this psychological load can break you. Panic is the ultimate enemy. It can cause you to make foolish mistakes, to burn your wood too fast, to spill your water, to rush out into the cold unprepared. The true survivor is not just the one who knows how to build a fire, but the one who knows how to control their own mind. They can sit calmly in the dark, listen to the sounds of the night without fear, and accept the loneliness as a companion rather than a threat. It is a test not of the body, but of the spirit. Could you survive if you ignore the flow of the group? You might think that staying warm and dry is about your own skills, your own strength. But inside a teepee on a cold night, you quickly learn that survival is a team sport. It's a quiet dance that everyone knows the steps to except you. Imagine you're lying there, wrapped in a fur. You're trying to sleep, but you're aware of every little sound. The gentle crackle of the fire, the soft breathing of the person next to you, the whisper of the wind against the hide walls. You feel a small urge to shift your position, to stretch a leg. In your modern home, you would just do it without a second thought. But here, that simple movement is a major decision. If you move too quickly, you might pull the shared blanket off the person beside you, letting in a rush of cold air. If you rustle the furs too loudly, you might wake a sleeping child. You would become a disturbance, a problem that others have to fix. You watch as a woman rises from her spot near the fire. She moves with a grace that seems impossible in the dim light. She doesn't stumble or make a sound. Her feet know exactly where to land to avoid creaky spots on the ground. She needs to add a log to the fire. She doesn't just grab the nearest piece of wood and toss it in. She selects a specific piece, one that you know has been chosen for its slow, steady burn. She places it on the embers so gently that not a single spark flies out. There's no smoke, no sudden flare-up. She has done this 1,000 times. It's a skill, an art form. Her goal is not just to keep the fire going, but to do it without disturbing the delicate peace of the sleeping group. She is thinking about everyone, not just herself. Later, you feel thirsty. The water skin is just a few feet away, but to get to it, you would have to crawl over 2 other people. How do you do that without waking them? You watch an older man who also seems to need a drink. He waits patiently. He doesn't move until the person next to him shifts in their sleep, creating a small, temporary path. He glides through that opening like water, takes a quick, quiet sip, and returns to his spot, all in one fluid motion. He saw an opportunity and took it, all while respecting the sleep of others. This is the flow of the group. It's a constant, silent communication. People anticipate each other's needs. They understand that every action affects everyone else. The tipi is a shared world, a single living organism. Your individual desires for comfort or convenience don't matter as much as the well-being of the whole family. If you were to act on your own, as you're used to doing, you would fail this test. You would get up, clumsy in the darkness, and likely step on someone's hand. You would drop the log on the fire, sending smoke into the faces of sleeping children. You would noisily open the water skin, waking the light sleepers. You would be seen not as a capable person, but as someone who doesn't understand the rules. And these rules aren't written down. They are lived. They are woven into the fabric of everyday life. Ignoring this flow isn't just rude, it's dangerous. It wastes energy, it disrupts rest, and it breaks the trust that holds the group together. Surviving the night here has less to do with how well you can build a fire and more to do with how well you can become a quiet, considerate, and helpful part of the whole. You have to learn to think like a we instead of a me. Without that shift in thinking, you are just a source of trouble, a cold draft in a warm home. Could you predict nature's tricks without experience? You might feel safe inside the tipi, with the fire glowing and the sounds of the world muffled by the thick hide walls. But the shelter is not a fortress. It's more like a ship sailing through the stormy sea of a winter night. And the people inside are the skilled crew, constantly adjusting the sails to match the changing weather. You, on the other hand, are just a passenger who doesn't know how to read the sky. The night begins peacefully, but then you hear it. A low whistle starts to build outside, the sound of the wind picking up speed. To you, it's just noise, a sign of a storm. But to the elder sitting by the fire, it's a language. He tilts his head, listening. He can tell which direction the wind is coming from and how strong it will get, just from the sound it makes as it wraps around the tipi. Suddenly, a gust of wind catches the smoke flaps at the top of the tipi, and a puff of smoke blows back down into the living space. Your eyes start to water. You might think the solution is to close the flaps, but that would be a mistake. The fire needs air to breathe. A young man gets up. He doesn't look panicked. He moves to the 2 long poles that control the smoke flaps. With a few skilled movements, he adjusts their angle. He's not just closing them, he's turning them to create a shield against the wind while still allowing the smoke to escape. It's a delicate balance, and he gets it right on the first try. The smoke immediately starts flowing upward again, and the air clears. You realize you wouldn't have known what to do. You might have made the problem worse, filling the tipi with choking smoke. This knowledge isn't from a book, it's from living through hundreds of nights just like this one. As the night wears on, the temperature drops sharply. You can feel the cold seeping in from the ground. The fire, which seemed so warm before, now feels inadequate. The person tending the fire notices this change before you even do. They don't just add more of the same wood. They reach for a different pile, one with denser, harder logs. They know this wood burns hotter and longer, providing the kind of deep, lasting heat needed to fight off a bitter cold. They are thinking hours ahead, making sure the fire will last until dawn. You, with your limited knowledge, would have burned through the lighter wood too quickly, leaving everyone to shiver in the hours before sunrise. You see now that managing the fire is a science. It's about understanding different types of fuel and how they behave. Then the snow begins. It's not a gentle dusting, it's a heavy, wet snow that starts to stick to the teepee's hide cover. You can hear it piling up, a soft, heavy thudding sound. You might worry that the weight will collapse the structure. But the people here are not worried. They know the teepee's cone shape is designed to shed most of the snow. They also know that a layer of snow on the outside provides excellent insulation, like an extra blanket. But they also know the signs of too much snow. An older woman occasionally pushes against the hide wall with her hand, feeling the weight and pressure. She is monitoring the situation, ready to act if needed. This is a life of constant awareness, of reading the signs that nature gives you. The wind, the temperature, the snow, they are not just inconveniences. They are powerful forces that you must understand and respect. Without this deep lived experience, you are helpless. You cannot fight nature, you can only adapt to it. And that adaptation is a skill you simply do not have. Could you trust others to stay warm when survival depends on it? In our modern world, we keep warm by ourselves. We turn up the thermostat in our own homes. We wrap ourselves in our own blankets. Warmth is a personal thing. But inside a teepee on a freezing night, you learn a powerful lesson. Warmth is a shared resource. The fire in the center is the heart of the home, but it cannot reach every corner. As the night deepens and the cold becomes a physical presence, the true source of heat comes from each other. You look around and see that no one is sleeping alone. Families huddle together and individuals are arranged in a circle, feet towards the fire, like the spokes of a wheel. This is not just a random arrangement, it is a carefully planned strategy for survival. The circle itself is a way of containing heat. Everyone's body becomes part of a larger, collective furnace. The people on the outside of the circle act as a living wall, breaking the cold drafts that might sneak in under the edge of the teepee cover. The children and the elderly are placed in the most protected spots, closer to the center, surrounded by the warmth of others. You realize your own body heat is not just for you. It contributes to the warmth of the person next to you, and their warmth contributes to yours. You are all in this together, literally. To receive warmth, you must also give it. This creates an unspoken bond of mutual dependence. This idea of sharing warmth goes even further with the bedding. You don't just have your own personal sleeping bag. Large buffalo robes and furs are laid over several people at once. You are tucked in under the same cover as the person to your left and the person to your right. This is incredibly efficient. It traps the combined heat of 3 or 4 bodies, creating a pocket of warmth that a single person could never achieve on their own. But it requires an enormous amount of trust. You have to lie still. You have to breathe in a calm, steady rhythm. You can't toss and turn, because if you do, you'll pull the cover off someone else, exposing them to the biting cold. Think about what that means. You are placing your well-being in the hands of strangers, or at least people you don't know well. You have to trust that they will be as still and careful as you are. You have to trust that they won't hog the blanket in their sleep. This level of physical closeness might feel uncomfortable to you, a person used to personal space. But here, personal space is a luxury that no one can afford. Survival depends on closeness, on cooperation. Even the air you breathe becomes part of this shared system. With 20 people breathing in an enclosed space, The humidity rises slightly, and the air loses some of its sharp, icy edge. You can see the faint mist of everyone's breath mingling in the air above the fire. It's a visible reminder that this small space is filled with life, and that life is what is keeping the deadly cold at bay. To survive here, you have to let go of your modern ideas of independence. You must learn to trust, to share, and to become a part of a warm, breathing circle of humanity. Could you endure the night and see the sunrise? After hours spent in darkness, listening to the wind howl and feeling the deep cold press in from all sides, the night can feel like it will last forever. It's a test of endurance, not just of the body, but of the spirit. Every crackle of the fire, every shift of a sleeping body, marks the slow passage of time. You find yourself waiting, hoping for the first sign that the ordeal is ending. And then it comes. It's not a dramatic event. It's a subtle change that you might miss if you weren't paying attention. You look up at the smoke hole at the very top of the teepee. For hours, it has been a patch of pure blackness, but now you can see a tiny shift. The black is turning into a deep, dark gray. It's the first hint of dawn, the promise that the sun is on its way back. A quiet sense of relief washes over you. You made it. The group made it through another night. As the light grows, you start to see the world inside the teepee more clearly. The faces of the people sleeping around you are calm. They seem so peaceful, so at home in this environment that felt so harsh to you. You look at the inner wall of the teepee hide. On the other side, you know a thick layer of frost has formed, a white crust of ice. But inside, the hide is dry. The clever design of the shelter, combined with the heat from the fire and from all the bodies, has kept the freezing moisture on the outside. It's a perfect example of how this simple structure creates a safe, livable space in an unforgiving world. The air inside is still and warm, a stark contrast to the frozen world, just a thin layer of hideaway. As the sky brightens, people begin to stir. It's not a sudden, noisy awakening. It's a slow and gentle process. An older woman is the first to sit up. She adds a few small sticks to the glowing embers of the fire. They catch quickly, and a small, cheerful flame flickers to life. The smell of fresh wood smoke, a morning smell, fills the air. It's a smell of safety and continuity. A child murmurs in their sleep, and their mother softly pats their back. Life is resuming its daily rhythm. The night was a challenge that was met and overcome, together. There's no big celebration, just a shared, unspoken understanding. We are still here. We are safe. One of the men rises and quietly unfastens the flap that serves as a door. He slips outside, and for a moment, the doorway frames a world of stunning beauty. The early morning light is hitting the snow-covered ground, making it sparkle as if it were covered in diamonds. The air is so cold and clear that you can see every detail of the landscape. The world that felt so threatening in the dark now looks pure and beautiful. The sunrise is not just a change in light. It's a reward. It's the prize for having endured the cold and the darkness. It represents victory, the return of warmth and life. To see that sunrise after a long winter night is to understand something profound about resilience and hope. It's a reminder that even the longest, darkest nights eventually come to an end. Life goes on, and a new day begins. Could you survive if you remembered the wisdom of those who mastered the plains? After spending a night in a teepee, you step out into the cold morning air and look back at the simple cone-shaped structure. It looks so fragile against the vast open landscape. Yet you know that inside that fragile-looking home, a group of people just survived a freezing night in relative comfort and complete safety. What you experienced wasn't magic. It was wisdom. It was a collection of lessons passed down through countless generations on how to live in harmony with a powerful and often harsh environment. And as you reflect, you realize that this wisdom is built on a few simple but profound ideas. The first lesson is about respect. You learn that you don't fight the wind, you adjust your shelter to work with it. You don't curse the cold, you use cooperation and shared resources to create warmth. This is a deep respect for nature, not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a powerful force to be understood and adapted to. This respect also extends to the community. Every action you take inside that shared space must be done with respect for the comfort and well-being of others. Your individual needs are important, but the needs of the group come first. In our modern world, we often try to bend nature to our will. Here, you learn that it is far wiser to bend yourself to fit the patterns of nature. The second lesson is about preparation. Your survival through the night wasn't a matter of luck. It was the direct result of careful, thoughtful preparation. The wood for the fire was gathered long before the storm, and it was dry and ready. The teepee itself was pitched in a spot that offered some natural protection from the wind. The buffalo hides were tanned and sewn with incredible skill to be both waterproof and breathable. The food was stored, the furs were clean, and the tools were in their proper place. Nothing was left to chance. These people survived because they were always thinking ahead, anticipating the challenges that the next season or even the next night might bring. They teach you that survival isn't about heroic struggles in a crisis. It's about the quiet, daily work of being prepared. The final and most important lesson is about adaptation. Nothing about life on the plains was static or predictable. The weather could change in an instant. A hunting trip could succeed or fail. The key to living here was the ability to be flexible. The teepee itself is a marvel of adaptation. It's not a permanent, rigid house. It can be taken down quickly and moved to a better location. The smoke flaps can be adjusted for any wind direction. The internal living arrangement can change based on the number of people or the severity of the cold. This flexibility is also in the people. They adapt to each other's needs, to the mood of a child, to the signs of a coming storm. They don't just have a single plan, they have a deep understanding of principles that allows them to find the right solution for any situation. What you learned in the teepee is that strength is not about being unbending like an oak tree, but about being flexible like a willow, able to bend with the wind and not break. This ancient wisdom, respect, preparation, and adaptation is the true secret to survival. It's a lesson we could all learn from.